Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is John Jake Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the Coach Grossman Dynasty here on NCAA 14, featuring that college football revamp, of course. And we jump into the off-season as we just recap one of the greatest seasons in Oklahoma football history. Not only do we end up winning that SEC championship, we end up winning the national championship as well. So ever since we got to Oklahoma, man, we've been taking care of business. 27-1 during our tenure, including a 50-5 overall record as a head coach. So we are definitely one of the top coaches in all of college football, and it's safe to say they were down bad for a couple of years in Lincoln Riley's last couple of seasons, but they are certainly back. And look at the domination that we kind of take over, man. So it's going to be a great episode. Make sure you go ahead, smash that like button, hit subscribe as well if you do happen to be brand new. And we will jump right into it, starting with taking a look at kind of recapping how the entirety of season number 7 did end up going for us. So for what we won every game, that is relatively obvious, but don't have as many ranked teams as we anticipate in our schedule. You know, we take care of business against Alabama and Arkansas, Kentucky, and Auburn early, but it looks like for us there was really only 3 teams in the regular season that were ranked, or at least remained ranked in the top 25 when the dust finally did settle. Tennessee, who did finish 14th in the final AP poll, we beat them by 30. North Carolina, they actually finished in the top 5, surprisingly. They were actually not ranked when we played them, but we beat them by 25. Texas is, of course, not back. They finished 3-9 on the year, and neither is Kansas. Kansas did not get to go bowling. That was one of the few non-conference games that we did end up having. Texas A&M finished in the top 10. They finished 8-5 overall. That was actually an uglier game, but we found a way to win that with our defense. Biggest score was the Bedlam series. We dropped 73 there. And then, of course, we round things out with the SEC championship, which we win by 17 against Florida. They finished outside the top 10 after a loss to Ohio State, which, by the way, I thought that we should have played Ohio State. I think they deserved it more than USC. And it kind of showed in the second half of the national championship game, where we did end up pulling away in the second half. We won 28-7 once we got out of the halftime locker room. And really, that only time that we gave up that touchdown was when we had our backups in, trying to get a glimpse of what is to come with the next generation of Oklahoma starters. And, you know, definitely going to be a little bit of growing. I don't think we're going to be as good here in Season 8 as we were, you know, this past season. Because we had some guys, man. First and foremost, I mean, we had 2 Heisman finalists. We did not end up winning the Heisman. That did end up going to Justin Cook, who, to be fair to Justin Cook, he had a phenomenal year. Over 2,000 yards rushing, 19 rushing touchdowns. Also chipped in with 2 touchdowns through the air as well, through receiving. So, I mean, no complaints there. A fullback finished in second, though, so that's really interesting to see. But I really think the Heisman Trophy should have gone to Maurice Royal. He ended up finishing in 3rd place overall. I think the only thing that stopped him was the interceptions, maybe. But, I mean, he's cut his interceptions down. His touchdowns did go up. And, of course, he threw for over 4,000 passing yards over the course of a season. Jeremy Givens was lethal, too. He finished 4th in the Heisman voting. He ends up with 1,800 yards on the ground and 18 rushing touchdowns. So, I mean, both of these guys were menaces. And, I mean, if we played our starters the entire time, I think one of them would have won a Heisman. But, you know, I don't like guys getting hurt, especially when we're up by like 30-plus points. So, yeah, we might have cost them a Heisman. But, you know, we ensured their health so that we can get what's more important, and that is a national championship. But that being said, even though we did not win the Heisman Trophy, we still cleaned up in terms of a lot of the awards that we end up winning. Maurice Royal is a first-team All-American. He ends up as a first-team guy representing the offense. The other offensive guy that was first-team is Tim Jones, who could come back for his senior year, but I wouldn't be surprised as well if he ended up declaring for the NFL draft. But the true story here was the defense. The defense was lethal in this one. 3 of our defensive linemen got first team honors: Mac Bird, Marcus Johnson, and Brent Thomas on the defensive line alone. Eric Gunn also ended up winning first team honors for the middle linebacker position, and almost our entire secondary got as well. Cedric Berry, Matt Ratliff, Nick Alexander all getting first team honors. Over to the second team, we saw Jeremy Givens and Sean Albert get those honors, with also David Steffens getting it at right tackle. He was a second team All-American. See if we have anybody. Actually, we had a ton of guys here. So Eric Smith got second team All-American honors, and then so did Sean Hall. So we'll see if that gets him into the NFL or not. And then our kicker and punter also getting here as well. Adrian Nelson, he should be a freshman All-American, and he's on the second team All-American honors. And so is Mark Williams, even though we didn't really use Mark Williams all that much. Well, I guess we punted 42 times this year. So, okay, so maybe we used him a little bit, but 15 punts inside of 20. Can't complain. It was a great year. So just taking a general look at the leaders in around college football, Maurice Royal actually did finish as the leading passer in the NCAA, and doing so pretty convincingly, actually. He had 250 yards more than the next person, who Ty Smith. He ended up with 3,700 yards. We ended up with 4,000. So 250 yard advantage there. Jeremy Givens did also finish 4th in NCAA rushers. So that's really cool to see. Jeremy Tate was 2nd in terms of receiving yards. Eric Gunn, Nick Alexander, and Sean Hall all in the top 3 in terms of solo tackles. And then, of course, Matt Berg and Marcus Johnson, they do both, I believe, tie the school record for most sacks in the season. Both of them getting 14 sacks. And then Nick Alexander was the leading interception guy. He ends up with 5. But taking a little bit of a deeper dive into the team stats this year, we did also get a look at the future of this Oklahoma football program. We did end up seeing Sawyer Thompson come in limited action this year. 22 for 38, 304 yards, touchdown, and 2 interceptions. So not the best passer with that completion percentage, under 60%. But what I am excited about is Sawyer Thompson's ability to run the football. He ended up with 52 yards on the ground. He did also have a touchdown as well. So that's really awesome to see. We'll see if he ends up winning the starting job or not. But that's something to watch out for. Receiving core, it's weird. The receiving core is losing some guys for sure, but it's also returning a lot of talent as well. That's just how deep we are at the wide receiver position. Jeremy Tate is only a junior, and he ended up leading the team in catches and yards this year. 78 catches, 1,290 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Did have a couple of guys with double-digit grabs this year. Sean Albert with 900 yards and 13 touchdowns. And then Aaron Atkins also ended up with 900, just short of 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns as well. So that's our big 3 right there. Then we see some other guys step up as well. Nick Andrews saw his role increase as the year came on. He ends up with 29 catches for 400 yards and a touchdown. Jeremy Givens does come through with 23 catches, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Terry Cotton, senior tight end, 225 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. And then the talented sophomore, who has had some difficulties kind of breaking through this depth chart. He ends up with 18 catches, 200 yards, and a touchdown in this one. I expect him to have a bigger role here in season number 8. Defensively, this defense was, of course, one of the best defenses in college football. I believe they finished number 1 in scoring defense, and that's to accommodate the, I believe, the number 1 scoring offense that we had in college football. So, again, no surprises here that we won a national championship. But Eric Gunn did lead the team in tackles this year. He ends up with 86 tackles, 19 TFLs, and a couple of sacks. And he was followed by Nick Alexander, who may or may not declare for the NFL. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Ends up with 78 tackles, 9 TFLs, and a sack. Speaking of sacks, I've told you earlier about Matt Berg and Marcus Johnson. They are obviously 2 guys that are, very dangerous human beings whatsoever. But we did also see Brent Thomas get 9 sacks in this one as well, so that's really good to see. Followed by some compliments from TJ Bailey, Kevin Davis, and Matt Mays. Another thing that we ended up doing this year is we ended up forcing plenty of turnovers. Nick Alexander, of course, led the team in interceptions. He ended up with 5 in this one, but multiple guys with multiple interceptions this year. Tyrell Booker, Matt Ratliff, Sean Hall, and Eric Smith all end up with 3 interceptions apiece. Tyrell Booker and Eric Smith slated to return next season. Cedric Bailey, a senior, it did also garner multiple interceptions. He ended up with 2. And then Matt Mays, one of our linebackers, he only had the 1 interception, but it did come in a pretty big moment in that SEC championship game that did help us get into the national championship. In addition, we also had multiple forced fumbles, 3 forced fumbles for Matt Mays that did lead the team, followed by TJ Bailey and Cedric Bailey. They're not related to each other, I promise. They both had multiple interceptions. Ratliff had a forced fumble. Zach Harris, Matt Berg, and Nick Alexander, same thing. And also, we got most of those fumble recoveries, so that's really good to see as well. We did end up with 4 defensive touchdowns on the year. Not that our offense necessarily needed help, but it was a nice added bonus, to get other backups in a little bit sooner. Now, for those of you that do have custom prospects, I do have a Google Sheet if you guys want to go ahead and see how your custom prospect did. For those that did make it to the college level, I will have that linked down in the comment section. It will be linked into that same area as where the custom prospect template is. And speaking of custom recruits, you're going to want to stick around with what's going on with that. I'll be talking about that towards the end of this episode. Now, unsurprisingly, even though we did end up with a contract extension, we are actually going to decline it because I'm just getting some word now. We'll go ahead and jump into a press conference to see what's going on with old Jeff Grossman following the success that we had this past season. Hey, what's going on, y'all? Just wanted to take the time for you guys to come out, and listen to what I gotta say. Great year for us, man. We, really enjoyed every single moment. But I wanted to come out here and let you guys know this year, this upcoming season is going to be my final season. It's been a heck of a ride, what college football has done for a small town country boy like me. It means the world to me. It really does. And I really had the opportunity to, experience every aspect of the finest things about college football. I really have. But, when it's time at the end of the day. And this year is going to be my last. And the only goal that I have is coming out on top. So unsurprisingly, with the success that we've had this past season, we will once again be working with no new coaches, which does also mean that we will have 2 new playbooks to work with, both on the offensive and defensive end. I will kind of go into that later in this episode, but for right now, we will have 2 new coordinators. For the offensive side of the ball, Calvin Lowry will be joining the squad as an offensive coordinator, and then Tyler Stockton is also going to be jumping in as the new defensive coordinator. Now, I believe Tyler Stockton was fired in the previous year. We'll have to check in on what's going on with Tyler Stockton. Actually, we'll go ahead and find that right now and see exactly what's going on with Tyler Stockton. So, okay, so that's actually there. So Tyler Stockton actually was the former head coach of Arizona State, but he actually gets fired after, not meeting expectations. Went 5-7, missing a bowl berth the past couple of seasons, so ended up getting the hook there. As for our offensive coordinator, we'll see if we can find him real quick. Definitely a lot of movement. I believe he was might be the offensive coordinator for Texas State. Am I reading that correctly? We'll go ahead and double check real quick. and see what we got going on. And yeah, he was the offensive coordinator for Texas State. He got to work with, Wardell Jackson, one of your guys' custom prospects. So, Texas State is a solid program, but we'll see how Calvin Rowley handles big-time college football moving on up in the SEC. So we now go ahead and jump into the players leaving. That's always the saddest thing, man. We do have a couple of guys transferring out of the program. CJ Morris is leaving for Boise State, which I'm personally not too worried about. He's only a 61 overall, so not a big miss there. Fred Red is also planning on leaving. We did end up redshirting him. Want to try to see if we can get him to stay because he is a very good player. He could start for us down the line, but he is actually going to end up leaving for University of Louisiana Monroe. So moving on to bigger and better things. We will have 5 confirmed pros. Actually, is not as many as I thought there was going to be, considering we just won a national championship and whatnot. So for the first round, guys, we had Sean Albert and Matt Ratliff become first round picks. So that's nice to see. For the second round, we will see Aaron Atkins and Matt Berg go to the NFL, and then Cedric Bailey ends up being a 4th round pick. But definitely some guys that I thought should have made the NFL, not showing as projected NFL draft picks. I thought Jeremy Givens definitely deserved it, but I don't know what's going on there. And also, how about this? Maurice Royal, a 99 overall, not projected to go to the NFL. Somebody make it make sense, right? This guy right here, won the Maxwell and the O'Brien. He's a first-team All-American, and you're telling me there's no spot for him in the NFL? That is absolutely crazy, and I do hope that is something that is addressed, in EA college football, because somebody like Maurice Royal would 100% be going to the NFL. It's no questions about it. But we do also see some guys trying to declare, and for me, realistically, unless you're a day 1 or day 2 pick, so if you're going in those first 3 rounds, you're not gonna leave early just to be like a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick. So I am going to go ahead and have all of these guys stay. I will talk all of them back in, so it should be no problem, because they shouldn't be leaving, and they'll all have bigger roles going into next season. So hopefully, oh wait a minute. All right, there we go. I thought we were going to have some issues there. So, got 4 guys to stay in the for the NFL draft, losing a couple people to the transfer portal, and we end up with 5 pros. As for player movement among your custom prospects, we do see 1 transfer off rip. We got Malachi Woods, who didn't get to play this year. He was going to be redshirted. But that being said, guy that has some, very raw talent, just needs to work on the awareness. That's what's keeping him off the field, but doesn't want to wait. He is actually going to transfer out of the Duke football program and is actually going to transfer over to Temple out there in the American Conference. So wishing him the best of luck there. Also leaving their respective football program, but for different reasons, is Fatu Tolufe. Now, Fatu Tolufe actually was a former walk-on. He walked onto the Hawaii football program and did earn the opportunity to start in his final season of college football. Had a decent year. Obviously, he's not going to make it to the NFL because he's only 5'9" and 400 plus pounds. Just doesn't have the athleticism for NFL football, but a nice little career for Fatu Tolufe, even though we never really got a chance to see him play since Hawaii is not that good of a football program. As for the University of Nebraska, you got 2 custom prospects that are actually leaving the program. First and foremost, I mean, this is a little bit less expected, at least unexpected, is Eli Thompson. He is going to graduate without going to the NFL. Just doesn't have the speed, but he did have a very solid NFL career. But what is a little bit more of a surprise is Wardell Jackson declaring for the NFL draft. He is projected to go as a 7th round pick. But with that being said, Wardell Jackson, he was very good. The Osborne, Nebraska product did some really good work over the course of his collegiate career. ended up close to 1,000 yards receiving in the past season with 11 touchdowns. Definitely was a playmaker for Nebraska, and he will certainly be missed going into season number 8. As for Old Dominion, we do also get to say goodbye to Kevin Sparks, and he was a guy that, tried to grow with Caleb Williams and was there back when they were in Conference USA and were making the transition over to the Sun Belt, but didn't really live up to the expectations. Never had more than 50 catches or 600 yards or more than 5 touchdowns. So, wasn't the receiver that Old Dominion necessarily wanted, but he is still a solid player through and through. Maybe wasn't utilized maybe as much as he could have been, and he will not be going to the NFL either. He's just going to straight up graduate. And as for the final custom prospects that will be leaving this college football universe, we have Joseph Kurkowski, who did end up graduating from UCF. The former IMG Academy product, was placed at the fullback position and was just a guy that, he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but UCF didn't really use fullbacks like that very much. I mean, he never had more than 10 carries in a season, nor did he have more than 10 catches, and frankly wasn't on the field very much, but he was a solid special teams guy. Very good teammate, all that good stuff. Definitely somebody that you want to marry your daughter someday. But as for the NFL, I mean, the NFL, fullback is a dying breed, and Joseph Kurkowski, unfortunately, is a product of that and will not get his NFL shot either. So we jump into the recruiting portion of this offseason, and because of that transfer that we did end up having, we technically do only have 2 quarterbacks on the roster. Of course, y'all know about Sawyer Thompson, who is, now going to be a sophomore redshirt, but then we also have Jared Foster, who we did redshirt this past season, who will also be competing for that starting quarterback job now that Maurice Royal did end up graduating from college. But you see, usually 3 quarterbacks is the minimal, right? So that's what we have going on. So with that transfer, we do need to grab a quarterback. Now, I don't have any quarterbacks on the board currently, but I'm not too worried about it, just because we did end up signing a few athletes who could definitely move into that quarterback role. We do have 11 players that are currently signed as of right now. They're high quality guys. I wasn't going after a big recruiting class by any means this year, but 4 5-stars and 7 4-stars, definitely a really great class that we have going on right now, including 4 5-star athletes, right? So we got a very talented list. Ole Miss, they have a number 3 class as of right now as well, and then Michigan actually does currently have the number 1 recruiting class in college football. We'll see if that can hold throughout the remainder of this recruiting period, because Michigan is essentially done, right, in terms of bringing guys in. But because I don't really have a lot of needs, I'm really going more so for quality instead of the quantity of guys, right? So mainly focusing on bringing in talent, and oh boy, do we still have some talent on this list. Big target for us here is the 4-star outside linebacker Ty Presley. He's a 6'4", 242-pound prospect from Temple, Texas. He's number 8 in his recruiting class among outside linebackers. Really great fit for us. We check all of his boxes in a major way. He's a gem guy as well. 84 speed for a linebacker, you guys. That is an absolute menace. That could definitely step in and play his freshman year right away if we need him to do so. Doesn't really have a weakness in his game. I mean, he's great in coverage. Might be something with his awareness potentially, but I mean, the NCAA 14 doesn't show you that awareness until after you bring somebody in. But we're in a recruiting battle right now. It's between us and Florida as of right now, so the majority of my points are actually going into him, but that's not the only guy that we're also going after. Carlos Smith is another guy that I really want to bring in. Granted, he is someone that does need to work on his tackling a little bit. He's not a very good tackler, but very good play recognition. Man in zone coverage is at that 80, mid 80s. You really love to see that. 98 speed as well. He's the number 3 corner in his class as well. I'm actually surprised he's only a 4-star guy and not a 5-star prospect, but should be someone that we should easily get in, right? Because Louisiana Tech is like 12,000 points. I'm actually surprised that we haven't locked him up downright as of yet, but put some points into him and we should bring him into our program. Now, a couple of guys where it might be a little bit shaky in terms of bringing in, but I'm hoping that we can bring onto the squad. One of which is Michael Mullins. He is a 4-star defensive tackle from Cutoff, Louisiana, number 3 in his class. And again, another guy that checks all the boxes with the exception of Pipeline State, because we do not have a lot of Louisiana players on our roster, right? But very good player as well, 74 overall. He has a very good power moves. Again, not a guy that doesn't have any weaknesses, except would like him to be a tad bit faster. 67 speed is not great, but, you know, he's a defensive tackle. You know, he'll definitely plug that line of scrimmage. Right now, it's between us, Minnesota, and Pittsburgh for his services. And I cannot forget about one of your guys' custom prospects, who is actually a 5-star recruit as of right now. Marcellus Wallace of Tulsa, Oklahoma. He is the number 8 running back in this recruiting class as of right now. He likes our playing style. He loves the fact that we're going to be close to home. And, you know, the SEC is one of the best conferences in college football, of course. And it's a pipeline. But if we don't sign enough Oklahoma players, we actually might lose a pipeline state. So that's not something that we want to see. But Marcellus Wallace has some solid speed. 87 speed, 88 excel, 88 jump, 90 agility. Very good athlete, and you know he's okay with receiving. 67 catch, 60 spec catch, 63 catch in traffic. That's okay for a running back. That's what I'm looking for. He's definitely a bruiser, and right now it's basically between us and Colorado State, right? But we're the only one offering a scholarship. We should be able to get him unless someone sweeps in at the last second. But hey, with that being said, we'll go ahead and jump into signing day to see what results come in for this recruiting class. Alright, so for the most part, we do get the guys that I wanted to bring in. But how about this for a surprise? Marcellus Wallace actually ends up signing with Colorado State, so we don't end up bringing him into the fold. But, you know, we get a couple of fillers on this team, such as Greg Hall, 64 overall, left end. So we did sign at least 4 guys, and it looks like it's showing that we did end up signing 7 total prospects in this recruiting class. And we actually do end up signing the #1 class in all of America. So we end up winning a national championship, and then we follow that up with also winning a, the #1 class in college football. We jump up to #1 just because we did end up adding a few guys onto the board as well. So very good class overall. I really like what I see. Definitely a high quality class of players, some of which will have to fight for a roster spot. They will certainly be on the bubble, just because we didn't have a lot of seniors leave the team, and we only did end up losing a couple of players to the transfer portal, to be honest with you guys. But what I'm really curious to see here is just how close we were to getting Marcellus Wallace, because we were the only school to give him a scholarship, and wow, 235 points away from getting Marcellus Wallace. So that's a tough blow, to be honest with you. We were right there, but we just did not put enough into him. We did end up getting Michael Mullins. That turned out to be really close between us and Minnesota, but we did end up getting him to sign on the dotted line. Who else did we end up putting points in for? Carlos Smith, that's no surprise. And then Ty Presley, we did pull away from Florida in the Ty Presley recruiting battle, so we end up winning that. And he's going to be a really good player, someone that I can really see go ahead and play day 1 for us, potentially on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm really excited about that. Now, on a side note, though, there was one other custom prospect that did also ended up signing on the dotted line here on signing day, and it was Jacob Miles, 1-star tight end out of Milliken, Tennessee. He's actually also going to remain in the state of Tennessee as well. Don't freak out, he is higher than a 55 overall, but does end up going ahead and, you know, he signs at Mid-Tennessee State. He did also have a scholarship to Temple, but it was one of those things where it was just too little too late, and we'll see how Jacob Miles develops. He was somebody that I talked about being more of a raw prospect, but, you know, should he get redshirted, I do definitely like his upside, especially because he does have pretty good size, seeing that he is 6'5". So this is what our roster is currently looking like as of right now, and to be honest with you, like, we have a pretty good returning roster, to be honest with you guys. Like, this is a very good team, even without, like, the training results, right? But the biggest thing that we do have to solve, we do need to find a third quarterback. Now, there was a couple of guys that I was thinking about moving over to that quarterback position, maybe even having two quarterbacks there at once. So I want to move Mike Johnson there for sure. And then I know it wasn't Andrew Hargrove that had like the throwing power attributes. It might have been Antoine DeAngelo's, and it turns out that he was actually. And yeah, it looks like quarterback would be best fit for him anyways. So that solves the quarterback problem. Don't want to have a walk-on at quarterback. So it creates an interesting player dynamic between Mike Johnson, Sawyer Thomas, Antoine DeAngelo's, and Jared Foster. It's going to be really interesting to see, you know, who ends up winning the job out of camp for fall ball. That might be something that we might need to solve at a later time, right? But still got a couple of other athletes. Andrew Hargrove, he has 95 speed, man. He is going to be dangerous. Seems like wide receiver could be a pretty good fit, and I think that might be what I'll do with him. I'll move Andrew Hargrove to that wide receiver position and just continue the tradition of wide receiver U that we got going on here in Oklahoma, right? Brad Means could very well be a 90+ overall. Emmy Husky will be a pretty good 4. And then like Jeremy Tate and Nick Andrews, they're going to be pretty dangerous. Not to mention, who knows how like Jason Mack and Rob Maxwell also develop as well. Not so sure about Billy Burnett. He's not that talented. But we do have one more athlete here in Michael Christian, and he could be moved to quarterback as well. I would prefer not to do that if I can help it, because we already have like 3 separate or 2 players at quarterback, and like they're all really good, right? So I might move Michael Christian to free safety. I know he takes a bit of an overall drop, but you know, he could be definitely a future starter, especially once Eric Brown and Zach Harris graduate. That way I don't want to have like 3 players of the same class like at the quarterback position, because we won't be needing quarterback for a while. Now, one other change that I do want to go ahead and make off rip is I think I do want to go ahead and move one of these middle linebackers. And personally, I want to move Ty Presley over to the left-hand side just because I want TJ Bailey to start on that right-hand side and then allow Ty Presley to sit behind Matt Mays for a little bit. He will, you know, he'll come in as like a rotational piece, you know, something like that. But then after a year, once Matt Mays graduates, Ty Presley will step in, and then it'll just be, you know, all hell breaking loose, right? So I'm really excited about that and what he could bring to the table. Cornerback, got a couple of really good corners, Carlos Smith, Ryan Hearn. Don't think I'm going to make any adjustments here to our safeties, and honestly, I think that's really the only position changes that I want to make as of right now. I feel good with what we got going on here. So I know that last year we did end up with a really talented football team, right? But going into this season, you know, there shouldn't be much of a drop-off. I mean, we still got some really good players on the squad. Brent Thomas is actually going to be our best player. He's a 99. But then we also got guys like Jeremy Tate and Nick Alexander coming back. They're 97s. Ryan Gordon's a 96. And so is Tim Jones and Tyrell Booker. And then rounding out, you know, the top 5%, or at least like a very small percentage of college football, Nick Andrews gets up +4. He's a 95 overall now, and should be a very good number 2. I mean, he's been overshadowed in this offense the last couple of years, but man, oh boy, we got a lot of really good talent on this team. But it does look like Sawyer Thompson does win the quarterback job out of camp. He is up to an 87 overall now. His awareness is up to a 69, which I think we can all agree that it is very nice, by the way. And I'm excited for him to use his speed. You know, that was something that we didn't have at the quarterback position the last couple of years. Not that we've needed it, since we've only lost one game. But, you know, here's a guy, 77 speed, 81 acceleration, 76 agility. Someone that can certainly open up the playbook a little bit, even though his arm talent might not be as much as Maurice Royals was earlier. Jared Foster, he should be the backup though, and he'll also be a very good fit for our offense. Don't have to constrain the playbook for him either. For running back, Andrew Smith will be our starting running back for this year, and he's up to a 94 overall. I thought it was in the 90s last year, but I guess that was not the case for this past season, but he's a very good running back as well. Looks like Chad Toff will get his first shot. I didn't really see him much past couple of years, but he'll finally get a shot, and then might sneak in a little bit of Willie Manning, who, you know, been waiting patiently, and he'll be like chilling around, being a good veteran piece and whatnot. Ryan Gordon's in 96, y'all already know this. We will have 3 receivers in the 90s. Jeremy Tate, Nick Andrews, and Brad Mean, you know, are in that 90 overall range. Emmy Husky Jr. and then Jason Mack will kind of take turns as that like 4 or 5 receiver. So I'm really excited about that. Emmy Husky Jr., very talented wide receiver. So can't wait to work with him a little bit. Tight end, we will have a freshman at tight end, but offensive line's looking good. We've got 390 guys. Rodney Dunlap, he's in like the mid 80s. Tim Jones is a 96, and then Bill Olsen's an 89. So the offensive line is going to be really good this upcoming season, so I love that. Kevin Davis is a 93, and then Marcus Johnson is actually also a 93. So defensive line's looking great. Tony Estes will be the number 2 defensive tackle. So yeah, so Estes might be the weak link if we still are in a 4-3. I still have to update our playbooks since we do have new coordinators. But as of right now, really don't have a weakness, right? Like, I don't think we really do have a weakness. Even TJ Bailey, I mean, y'all seen him. TJ Bailey's an 89 speed guy for a linebacker. Let's talk about that for a second. Eric Smith and Brian Brooks will both be starting. Brian Brooks might be a lower end quarterback too, but we should be fine. And then, you know, we still have Nick Alexander, obviously. He's a 97. Tyrell Booker's a 96. I should have moved him to free safety, honestly, so we can't redeem him on the field. But, I mean, he'll make his impact either way. This is a very talented football team, and I am 100% ready to see what it can do. But first things first, what we do have to take care of is, I believe we got to cut some players. So we'll go ahead and take care of that real quick. And then, yeah, man, I like some preseason stuff to take care of as well. Alright, boys, so even though we ended up signing a bunch of players, we actually do only have 3 players that I want to cut. And I'm definitely going to get rid of Brandon Love. I mean, I addressed that through the athletes, so I don't know why they're bringing in a redshirt guy. 2 other players should be relatively easy guys that probably will not play. If I'm going to be honest with you, Greg Hall, even though we'll lose the pipeline of the state of Ohio. And then also Joey Lumpkin, he's a 63. I will see either of those guys playing either. So really easy decisions. This is what our roster is going to be looking like. There's a lot of talent on this team, man. Like, we gotta keep it a G for a minute, right? Like, this is gonna be a fun year. We get the opportunity to defend for a national championship, and we'll see if we can live up to those expectations, because I'm sure we'll have a massive target on our back now that we have 2 SEC championships. We're the 2-time defending champs in the best conference in college football, at least in this NCAA universe. And then also we are defending national champs as well, winning convincingly against USC. So yeah, we'll see if we can live up to those expectations. And speaking of those expectations, oh boy, do we have another tough schedule. We are with an A+ strength of schedule. First of all, peep that number 2 in the nation. So someone saw what we did back in the previous season and only ranked us number 2, so that's disrespectful. But we open up the season off on the road against LSU. They open up as the number 13 team in the nation. Then we got a couple of easier games on the road against Arkansas, and then a home game against Kentucky. Then we have a couple more ranked opponents. We got Auburn, and we also have Tennessee on the road before we have our rivalry game against Texas. Then we have a bye week. We jump into the Alabama game, followed by a second bye week where we'll take on both of our non-conference opponents. That's not Oklahoma State. We'll take on Kansas, and then we also go on the road to play against Army, followed by a road game against Texas A&M, and then we'll wrap things up with a home game against Missouri, and finally, we will also wrap things up with a neutral site matchup taking on Oklahoma State in the Bedlam series. So we will have that rolling for us moving forward, but definitely a really tough schedule that we get to look forward to this upcoming season. Now, like I said, we will have some adjustments to our playbook because we do have brand new coordinators that we will be working with, and we will have it adjust. Biggest change probably is our defense. We were in a 4-3 this past season, but we're switching it off to a 3-4 defense. That's what this defensive coordinator wants to run, and we're a little bit more aggressive with our play call style. So that'll be interesting dynamic since we do have a pretty aggressive team anyways. And then offensive side of the ball, things are slightly different. It's still a spread offense, but we will be using the Baylor playbook this upcoming season, so definitely would love to see how that ends up turning out. Similar spread offense, different concepts, different terminology, but I don't expect much of a mishap with our offensive side of the ball this upcoming season. Now, as for who we are going to go ahead and redshirt, we are going to start off at the quarterback position. One of the most important quarterback positions in all of college football. We have Antoine DeAngelis, who I am going to go ahead and redshirt. That 89 speed is absolutely lethal, don't get me wrong, but as a 4th string guy, I don't want him to get into the game. Now, I don't redshirt Mike Johnson because I do like to have 3 quarterbacks on the roster just in case something happens with both guys in front. So that's why he's going to get the red shirt. Now, as for the defensive side of the football, I am going to make a couple of red shirts as well because we are going into a 3-4 defensive scheme. Because of that, Brian Glover and also Michael Mullins are both going to be buried on the depth chart. So I'm going to redshirt both guys as well and just allow Brent Thomas to go to work, really. We got a really elite defensive line. I think that's the biggest beneficiary. You'll have Kevin Davis on the left. He's a 93. Marcus Johnson on the opposite side, who's also a 93 overall. And then Brent Thomas up the middle, who's a 99. Not to mention, we got some solid linebackers as well. Matt Mays, he's a 91 overall. So that'll be good. Ben Livingston and Eric Gunn are also in there as well. That's who I'm excited about the most, is Ben Livingston. He'll also be able to get a little bit more playing time. Didn't see him much last year. Only ended up with 7 tackles. But we'll be able to see him a little bit more often. Maybe potentially Bergeron Ironside, the son of a former King. So we might be able to see him a little bit more. TJ Bailey, of course, will round out the linebacking core. As for cornerbacks, as of right now, I do have, looks like, 7 corners. I think I'm going to go ahead and redshirt one of these corners. I'm going to redshirt Ryan Hearn. He is a true freshman, and he's like our 4th corner. I'm not redshirting Carlos Smith because really that 98 speed, that is simply that's too much athleticism to ignore. He needs to be on the field. Maybe as a backup defensive guy, but more importantly, I really see him as a guy if I can take special teams. Now, if you made it this far into the video, first and foremost, I want to thank you guys again for supporting the series. It really has meant a lot to me, and it's been really fun doing this. But this is going to be my final series, or my final season with this series, because we've won all but one of our games in the last couple of seasons. I wanted to do one more year just because some of your customs that are here on the Oklahoma squad are going to play, but I wanted to ask you guys, and I did post this on my community tab around the same time that this video did originally release. Would you prefer me to, play every single game in some shape or fashion like I've done the first 7 seasons? Or would you prefer me to kind of do like a documentary style for season number 8, get the entirety of year 8 in 3 to 4 episodes, kind of similar to what TNJ is doing with his Colorado Tech series. For those of you that watch TNJ, and I think some of you came over from TNJ shouting me out, so shout out to TNJ and what he's doing, of course. So you can let me know down in the comments or vote on the community tab. However, if you do want a custom prospect, you can still drop it in here as well, because even though this may be the final season in this series, that doesn't mean I'm going to be done with this Dynasty universe. I have some things in the works that I don't want to reveal to you guys as of right now, but this will not be the end of this universe. So you're going to want to, if you want a custom prospect still, I will still have the template down, but hey, in the meantime, guys, I hope you guys are super excited for this upcoming season. And if you are, go ahead, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you have to be brand new. Shoot, hit me up down in the comments with how you feel about this team going into this season, and would you prefer me to do a documentary style, or go through the entire season, last 7 seasons of this series. So let me know down in the comments. And with that, this is John Shit Gaming on the mic signing off. I'm hoping you're all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.